I just noticed that my camera's tilting a little bit. Hold on, I think we're in for a bumpy ride. Good morning, my friends. Good to see you today. Morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this. And I'm drinking from my mug on a mug. Well, let's just a minute. My mug with a mug on a mug. That, our coffee, our posters, all of our stuff you can find on wearemetalwearefamily.com. And thank you for purchasing our stuff. It goes to feed the homeless and help, and we're excited that that's a way that we can help the homeless and get them some much needed help. So here's the question. Speaking of homelessness, I did a podcast the other day, standing in front of our new bus. And as some of you may know, we had a bus that was donated to the ministry, and we're going to be outfitting basically a little diner inside of it. People can come in and eat, and we drive on to the next place. It's the way that we figured out that we're going to feed the homeless in the future, because our hands are being tied and some other methods we've been using. But in that, I had some interesting comments, and such great comments, by the way. Thank you for your support and your enthusiasm and your go-get-em attitude. I appreciate that. I really do. Dear Pastor Bob, I have a question that relates to your podcast on homelessness. I don't mind helping people who really need help, but how do we tell those who actually are homeless? I've been told a panhandler can make on a good day $500 and yet not even be really homeless. Am I wrong for feeling this way? No, you're really not wrong for feeling this way. And I think it's something that probably should be talked about. You know, one of the difficulties with homelessness is that we just don't know that much about it. I knew nothing about it. I had a lot of opinions about it before I got involved in the homeless, and found out that most of my opinions were wrong. I know. And I think that's true with most people. So how do you know if somebody's really homeless? Well, you don't. You don't know by just looking at them. So when we serve the homeless, we have people who have been wearing the same clothes for a few months. You know who they are. And you can kind of, well, let me just say that your nose will alert you as they're getting closer. Yeah. But then we have these people that are very well dressed, very manicured, look great, living in a tent. How they do it, I'm not sure. And they always look good, and they're always presentable because they're trying to find a job and get out of their situation. A lot of those people. And to look at them all, you would guess that the ones that haven't bathed and changed their clothes for a very long time are homeless. But you wouldn't guess the others are. And let me tell you, you walk down the streets every day and meet homeless people that you don't realize are actually homeless. You'll meet families you don't realize are homeless or don't have enough food or whatever. You know, we're a little oblivious to all of that. So what do we do? Well, generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, when a panhandler comes up and asks you for money, don't give it to them. It's a couple things. One, you can make a lot of money doing it. There's some guys that stand in the corner and say, I will work for food. And so if you pull up, for most of them, and say, I have a job for you, they'll say, no, thank you. That's not what it's all about. Most people assume that since they have a sign saying I'm willing to work, that they actually are. Not always the case. Or, I'm down on my luck, or I'm a vet, that's a good one. I'm a vet and I need some help, or, there's all these signs. And yet sometimes if you follow that person home, They get into a nice car and they live in a nice place, and that's just how they make their money. Very sad. But that happens all the time. And it's anywhere, USA especially. Anywhere here. Any city, where nobody's immune from that kind of a thing. Or in a parking lot, I just need, $10 for gas. My family's here, we're stranded. I've heard that one, and I've had the same person ask me the second time, a week or two later, same story again. I even had one time when I was in a restaurant, and my waitress was fairly cheerful, and she did a good job, and I left her a good tip. And it wasn't even a week later that she was one of those people that came up and said, I'm desperate. I need $5 or $10 to put gas in my car. And I'm thinking, you were just my waitress, and I know you're not penniless. I know you're not. So, there are those people that are scammers. And in my experience, and I'm underlining that, in my experience, most of them are not homeless. Now, just because you're not homeless doesn't mean you're not in need. There are a lot of people that are severely marginalized, and they're in crisis. They have just enough money to stay in the place they're living, but not enough money for food or anything else. There are a lot of people like that, and we serve them all the time under the bridge, and I tell them to keep coming. Even if you get a place to live, keep coming, because we want you to stay there, and you may not be able to afford both. In fact, you probably can't. So what do you do with those? What do you do with the panhandlers? What do you do with the people that you're not sure about? Well, it gets down to what we always talk about: love, love, love. It gets down to really getting to know people, to spending some time with them. When somebody says, I'm hungry, can you spare a little bit of money? And I always say, I'll buy you food right over here. And a lot of times they decline because they really weren't wanting money for food. But sometimes there are people that are hungry. And if I offer to meet their needs, well, sure, bring your car over to this gas station and I'll fill it up for you. Well, that's not what they needed. So if you kind of call their bluff, you can find out if they really are in need. Secondly, I try to err on the side of love. If I'm really honestly not sure, and I usually can tell, but if I'm not sure, I err on the side of giving. Just because I think it's what Christ would have us to do. And I'm not responsible for what they're going to do with the finances, but I am responsible to have a heart of giving. Also, there are people who will ask you for money because they have a habit, a drug habit, an alcohol habit. And for those people, obviously money isn't their solution, and getting them help really is. And that's a little more difficult, but it's important. And there are a lot of organizations that can help, and offer to take them to one. And if you don't know of any in your community, get to know what's there so you can help people when you encounter them. But folks, the number one issue, I think, is love. Is love and taking the time to talk to people and to get to know them. Because you see, that's the bottom line, and it always will be. The more I get to know someone, the more I know what their needs are. When I go down and I see our homeless people, there's some people I've known for years that are still eating with us. Many of them have a bit of a mental disorder, or some of them have just been mistreated so much they don't trust anybody, or, they're women that have been abused their whole lives. They don't know anything else. There are so many different kinds of people, and I know a lot of their stories. And so I know how to handle them. I know what they need. I know what I can give them. And, when a person comes up and asks for a tent, and I give them a tent, and a week later they're asking for another one, I know they're probably going to sell the second one to make some money. So we talk about that. What do you need? Why are you asking me again? And I understand that you're probably going to sell it. So how else can I help you? those kinds of things. And it only comes from getting to know people, getting to know them, getting to know their situation, and knowing how to help. But folks, this is the job of the church. Not to stay within our walls and be oblivious to everybody outside of it, but get to know your neighbors. Get to know the people in the streets. If somebody's sitting down and they look a little discouraged, sit down with them and talk. Everybody needs somebody to talk to. But you see, that's what Christ asks us to be, his ambassadors. And what did Christ do? Love, love, love. And as ambassadors of Christ, that's your job. That's my job. We have a great opportunity to really affect the world around us. Very exciting. Let's get started. Well, folks, once again, don't forget, you are blessed. So go and be a blessing.